This time, if you would please stand for the national anthem, sung by the National Chorus.
And we have come here today to pay respect, honor for our veterans of yesteryear, our veterans of today, and our veterans that will be from all the people that are in the service today. And we thank the school, we thank Mr. Seltzer, and the teacher, and all you wonderful students for being here today, and all the beautiful music we heard. So let us pray, dear God. Eternal Father, protect our country from harm and danger. Guide those who lead our nation, that their decisions may be wise and just and just, guided by your holy word. I lift up to you in prayer the men and women who serve in our military today to safeguard the liberties we cherish. Watch over them. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Thank you very much for all the wonderful music. Band teacher, music teacher, did an excellent job. Thank you, Olivia, for doing the pledge, and Jane for the prayer. And now I'm going to introduce our speaker, Dave Hosmer. He's Yankton. He's was a full-time lawyer. He kind of does a little part-time work now. He's a lawyer and financial advisor. And he's done a lot of work with veterans, and he's also sort of in the process of trying to write a book for World War II veterans. He's done a lot of interviews and done a lot of work with that. And now I introduce David Husband.
Thank you. Thank you to the school for inviting me. It's a privilege to be here today. I can't tell you how much I really enjoy talking about the topic of veterans. I think you're going to enjoy this. I hope you enjoy this. I put it together over the weekend. It's been a little short notice, but I'm going to get her done, okay? So, first of all, anybody here a veteran? Raise your hand. Raise them high. Okay, we got a lot of veterans in the front row. That's good. Now, would anybody like to guess what percentage of the citizens of the United States are veterans? More. Lower than 52.
46.
Lower than 46.
15.
15 is pretty close. It's about 17%.
Good job.
And 18 years ago, it used to be 20%. What that simply means is that we've got a lot of veterans who are older, passed away, and we've got a smaller military force. And I wanted everybody to raise their hand as a veteran because when you see veterans, I want you to acknowledge them. And when you do this, I'm going to give you a few tips, okay? But first of all, I want to say, also, how about that band in the chorus? They sound pretty good, don't they? Good job. As students, you're all familiar with the learning process. And I am here to tell you that the learning process should never end. What I mean by that is for the rest of your life, you're going to continue to learn. It's important that you continue to learn. I'm 51 years old, and one of the things I do is I talk to veterans. They're wise. They've seen things that I haven't seen. And when you want to ask some questions to them, most of the time, but pretty frequently, they're going to say, okay, ask me a few questions. I'm okay with that. A few things I want you to know about veterans is, generally speaking, they're a humble bunch. They're very, very humble. They rarely toot their horns. They don't go out of the way to tell you what they've done. And that's their training. So don't expect them to come up to you and say, let me tell you about all I've done. That's not how it works. You see one of those hats around here. I see one over here, for example. You see one of those hats, might say Legion, might say VFW, might say Vietnam, might say veteran. Shake their hand. There's nothing wrong with that. Say thank you. Nothing wrong with that. They'll appreciate it, mark my words. Another thing I want you to know is there's an unspoken bond between veterans. Now, an unspoken bond just simply means that if belong to an organization not everybody's belonged to. 16, 17% of the population is enlisted, drafted, the rest are not. They have some things that they're not going to tell you about, especially combat. People who've actually been in a war zone, they have a much greater unspoken bond. I can't explain it, but I'll do my best to say it like this. If you've ever loved somebody, and I know y'all have, it's really hard to define when you love somebody. But you know it. It's the way veterans many times feel about the bond between themselves and another combat veteran. So keep that in mind. And the final thing I want you to know, and this is just getting started, folks, just bear with me, is that the veterans are probably the greatest bunch of most patriots you've ever seen. They have a respect for the flag and these wonderful songs. They love their country. Don't ever tell them they don't, because they love their country. And that's why I love veterans. They love the United States of America like I love the United States of America. But today I want to talk to you about one topic about veterans that they have done. And the word is sacrifice. Sacrifice. That's a mighty big word to a veteran. Does anybody here have a loved one who's not with them because they're in active duty someplace else? Anybody have a loved one in here? We did. We have one right here. We had a couple. We'd have had a few more hands up, but we've just got our guard unit came back. Thank goodness. They've been gone a lot over the few years. It's been a lot of a challenge. Now, the background for me talking about sacrifice, and I think the reason I was asked to come here today is because I've talked to a lot of veterans. I've interviewed about 150 World War II veterans. I've interviewed about 12 to 15 Korean-era veterans. And I've interviewed about 10 Vietnam veterans. The average interview has been about 2 to 3 hours. And I have written a book. In fact, I've got a Pacific right now on World War II is done. The problem is I can't get everybody's consent to be in the book. About 325 pages. And what I've done here today, and I'm going to tell you, is I'm going to read a few stories from these World War II veterans and even one from a Vietnam veteran. But here's what I want you to think about for sacrifice. One story. I was having a cup of coffee at Starbucks. Raise your hand if you like Starbucks. Everybody loves it. I'm at Starbucks one morning and I'm having a cup of coffee with a friend. And he said, I was getting my license plates the other day and it was a little difficult. I said, why? What's going on? He said, well, you see, my wife is a Gold Star recipient. Now, let me tell you about Gold Star recipients. If you have a loved one who's in active duty, you could put a blue star in your window. And when someone drives by your house, they know that family has a person who's in active duty. But a gold star is placed over the blue star, and it signifies that someone has passed, someone has died during their duty to their country. It's extraordinarily moving. So he said, let me tell you a little story about this gold star. He said, my wife and I went to go get some gas one day, and he said, she went inside to pay, and I started pumping gas. She came back out and said, I was sitting in the front seat. I looked over, I said, did you see that? She said, no. What was it? She said, look over your shoulder. So she looked over her shoulder, and there was a man standing at attention. He had pumped gas, stopped pumping gas, because he saw that gold star license plate, and stood at attention, saying nothing, but giving the salute, the symbol of respect, the bond between soldiers and their families. Every time I tell that story, it makes me quiver inside because, frankly, it exemplifies what sacrifice means. That person's family suffered for that, but there's sacrifice involved. So, now, I hope that nobody has to sacrifice like our veterans and their families have sacrificed. I hope we never have to do that again. But that's what their duty is. They're called to duty to defend the country. We would need them. We want them there. And so let me tell you a few things. A little game I play in my head. It's a little game. And it's this. If if I'm ever some emotion going on in my head, I'll say to myself, yeah, but it wasn't as bad as so-and-so had it when they were in the military. So let's play this game, okay? So, when you're feeling sick, think of Delmer. China was on the Allied agenda at the meeting at Quebec in August 17th of 1943. The Allies, which is the United States, England, France, wanted China's help to bog down the Japanese away from the Pacific battles. But China offered little return unless they received supplies. So, Delmer Strunk from Scotland, South Dakota, he was about your age over there when he joined the military. The Allies agreed to reopen the Burma Road from India to China, and there was a two-pronged plan. They needed a land base and they needed airplanes. He was in the land base. He was in a group called Merrill's Marauders. Those of you who like history and like to read, I encourage you to read about Merrill's Marauders. On April 3rd of 1944, Delmer's battalion was on a forced march. And he started feeling ill. It's in the middle of the jungle. It's 100 degrees. But he was freezing. Absolutely cold. He said, I was sure I was going to get malaria. I was so darn sick, I heaved while I marched. Everyone had to double step. As it turned out, Delmer was suffering from typhus, malaria, and jaundice. He lived. God bless him. Now that's the game I play. Someday I may not feel too good when I get up in the morning, but you know what I say? Not as bad as Delmer had it. Not as bad as Delmer had it. So someday you might say to yourself, I'm feeling scared. Well, say to yourself, let's think of Marvin. Marvin Schaefer was a farm boy from Hutchinson County. He arrived in Guam at the 77th Division in August of 1944, just in time for the mop-up. The mop-up means the battle's going through, and there might be some stragglers, and they're looking for the stragglers. And it became active patrols, and the patrols were looking for people in caves. Most importantly, snipers. Snipers. These are Japanese holdouts. And in fact, the last Japanese sniper, guess when they actually gave up? 30 years after the war ended. 30 years they held on. These are diehards. So all of a sudden he makes a turn, makes a corner, and a shot's fired, and it grazes right by his helmet. And I said, were you scared? He said, hell yeah, I was scared. So someday when you are scared, think of Marvin. Think of Marvin. Right? When you're hungry, can I suggest that you think of Bob? Bob Phillips. Bob Phillips is a veteran who lives in Orlando, Florida, and I was there in 2015, so I looked him up and I interviewed him. See, he was in the Philippines when the Japanese invaded in 1942. He and 350 other men from his group were taken to a prison camp in Tokyo. It's called 2B, located in Kawasaki, about halfway between Tokyo and Yokohama. He was there for 2 years and 10 months in a prison camp. In February of 43, Bob got dysentery. Dysentery. And he was housed in the sick bay. Guess what they did to him? They cut his rations in half. Can you imagine being the sickest you've ever been in your entire life, and the nurse says, by the way, we're cutting your food in half. So someday when you say, gosh, I'm starving, I'm hungry, can I suggest that you think about Bob? When you think about, oh, I'm so tired, I'm sleepy, I don't think I can walk another step, can I suggest you think about Harlan? Harlan Twyble graduated as an ensign from the Naval Academy in the spring of 1945. He was assigned to the USS Indianapolis. I interviewed him at his home in Sarasota, Florida in 2014. He was the only officer from his class that was assigned to a ship, a capital ship. And he wound up there in San Francisco on June 26, 1945, and the Indianapolis delivered the 2 nuclear bombs to a small tiny island of Tinian. After they left Tinian, the ship was torpedoed in the South China Sea, and the entire ship went down in 10 minutes. Broke the bow in 2 pieces. They were in the water, ladies and gentlemen, for 5 days and 4 nights. This is what he said. You don't know why things happen. I wasn't in control. God had control. Every minute there's something happening, you had to react. Obviously, they didn't eat much, if anything at all. He ate nothing while in the water. He lost weight. He went from 155 pounds to 129 pounds in 5 days while he treaded water. So, he said, Dave, don't ever let anybody tell you that you can't go 5 days without sleep, because he said, I did it. So my suggestion is, if you're ever tired, would you please think of Harlan? Think of Harlan. Whenever you're physically uncomfortable, just for whatever reason, can I suggest you think of Fisk? You see, Fisk Hanley is a member of a B-29 crew stationed in Tinian. He lived in Dallas, and I interviewed him in 2015. They were going to do the Okinawa invasion, a little tiny island in the middle of the Pacific, April 1st, 1945. Happened to be Easter Sunday. And so they needed to stop Japanese ships from coming down to stop the battle. So they're going to drop some mines in the water. Drop some mines in the water. His B-29 was caught in the cone of some spotlights. The cabin light went up and it was complete daylight, even though it was dark outside. The pilots must have been blinded. The commander of the plane tried to escape by picking up speed and climbing into the haze. His instruments went haywire, likely due to flak. Direct hits sounded like hailstorms. His ears were shattering. The concussion tossed the plane up and down in the air. And finally, the plane went down and fish came out in his parachute. When he landed, he was captured by the Japanese civilians, who almost killed him. He was wounded. So they took him into custody, and he ended up being in Tokyo. He said they wanted him to do propaganda. They wanted him to say that the Japanese were good people, and that we were war criminals. And he said, I'm not going to do that. I refuse to cooperate. For his refusal, he was punished. He was taken upstairs, and they put probes in his body, in his wounds. They took him back outside, and they beat him with kendai, which are long batons. He almost died. He was, you know where he stayed? He lived in a horse stall, 8 by 10, for 4 months. They treated the pigs better than they treated him. So someday when you're feeling uncomfortable, can I suggest that you think about Fisk? When you feel drenched, outside, we're playing on the playground or we're in a football game and it's wet, can I suggest you think about Ken? Ken Hensler hails from Worthington, Minnesota. He also happened to be my high school principal. Good man, too. Fantastic guy. His whole family served. His father served in World War I. His brother served in World War II. Ken enlisted, against his mom's wishes, I might add, because he was a patriotic kind of guy. He ended up in New Caledonia, Brisbane, Guadalcanal, on his way to a tiny speck called New Gloucester. Hot, steamy rain is how he described it. He says, it's all jungle over there. It seemed like it never stopped raining. It was a soupy mess. One day, they were in their foxholes. It rained so much that it came up to his neck. You get out of the foxhole, you get shot. So you're not getting out of the foxhole. So some days when you think you're just too wet, just too drenched, can I suggest that you think about Ken? And if you're feeling cold, and I'll tell you my personal story, because this is how I thought about this day. Anybody here hunt pheasants? Raise your hand if you hunt pheasants. I hunt pheasants. Opening day was a lovely day this year, right? Gorgeous outside. Well, the second day was a little chilly. And as I was in the back of a pickup truck, going from one spot to another spot, I had my head hunkered down and I had my hat on. I said, oh, I'm cold. And I said, but you know what? I'm not as cold as Bill. And that made me through it. And I got over my pity pretty fast. But I thought of Bill Lynch. See, Bill Lynch is from Yankton. He was a heck of a football player in his days, boys. And he landed at a place called Anzio in Italy. He said, we came into 3rd Division replacement. We hit the beach. When we hit the beach, 2 to 3 airplanes came over and strafed us. He said, men were killed right in front of me. He said, I'd never even been to a funeral. He said, they didn't even make it off the beach. And then he said, I realized at that point I was no longer at Yankton High School. By the way, he was 19. I bet there's somebody here who's 18 who's in school. Like many others, Bill Lynch developed trench foot. Trench foot. You know what that means? It means you're in a foxhole and your feet are in water and you can't take your feet out of the water, so your feet freeze in the ice. It's the breakdown of tissue caused by long exposure to damp, cold conditions. Trench foot originated the name back in World War I. But may I suggest, if you're feeling sorry for yourself because it's cold outside and you got a long walk, but you're going to make it, perhaps you should think about Bill. Now, if you're feeling sorry for yourself, and let me tell you, I am the same way. We are all human. There are some days that are better than others. There are some days that are much worse. But you know what? We all have roofs over our head. We have meals. We all get hot showers, clean clothes. We have people who love us. Let me tell you about Oliver. Think about Oliver. Oliver Omenson was a veteran who lived in Yankton. I sat across from him in Kiwanis for years. He was imprisoned by the Nazis for 19 months. He was a machine gunner in the 45th Division and was captured on September 11th of 1943 near Salerno, Italy. On April 16th, 1944, Oliver wondered what others thought of him for being captured. Certainly no one in South Dakota knew he's even taken, but he was thinking there might be angry at him because he's been a prisoner. There might be a stigma attached with it. It was a choice of living or being shot. I decided I would stick around for a while, and he said, 3 weeks later, he said, I was plenty blue and homesick. I think he had a right to be homesick. He had the right. When you're feeling homesick, I can remember the first time I was homesick. I was in Aberdeen, South Dakota, at Boys State. Boys State. Dan Colbert was there. By the way, the Legion over here funds the Boys State. And I can tell you this, I was lonely for my home. I wish I'd have known at that time Oliver, because I could have thought about him and it wouldn't have bothered me after that. And the last person I want to tell you about, and then I'll end this, when you're thinking you're in pain, you know, football, or gymnastics, or softball, or baseball, some sport, you might twist an ankle, your neck might hurt. When I'm old, I'm 51, I wake up in the morning and I sneeze and I sometimes hurt my back. That's how old I am. If you're feeling something like that and you're feeling a little creaky, can I suggest that you think of Daryl? Daryl? See, Daryl Merkwan grew up in Yankton. And he's an amazing person. Who here plays high school football? Raise your hand. One person? You got a pretty small team there, kid. That's it? Okay, you got a couple football players. He played high school football and he got recruited at Yankton College, which no longer exists. But he went to Northern State University. And up at Northern, they had a guy by the name of Clark Swisher who was coaching the team at that time, and he was a legend. According to Daryl, Clark served in the Army Air Corps. How would you like to have as your football coach a former Army Air Corps guy? Well, it wasn't as bad as their other coach because he was a Marine. He said, well, they were pretty tough on us. But this is what Swisher would do. He said before the game, Swisher would put us in the gym, turn off the lights, and he'd say, get your head in the game, boys. Sit there and think about it. And anybody who's played football knows that football is 90% mental. If you're not ready to go into the football game, you aren't ready to play. So they'd come back and he'd switch the lights on. This is 1968, the height of the Vietnam War. Guys like you, 18 years old, you're going in the summer after you graduate from high school to Vietnam. You go to college after that, you're in the draft, the lottery, you're going to Vietnam. Place that in perspective. And he said, now boys, think how fortunate you are to be doing what you're doing. How many people would like to be in your shoes? He said, I didn't figure that out till a year later when I was living like a rat in Vietnam. Swisher's inspiration took the team to the small college playoffs in Texas in 1968. And here's that humility part. Darrell forgot to mention that he was in the Football Hall of Fame at Northern State. Yeah, it just amazes me. I had a conversation for 3 hours. Darrell's outfit was Charlie Batter's 2nd Battalion, 320th Field Artillery Regiment. That's a different type of artillery. They were attached to the 101st Airborne. Airmobile. He said everywhere we went by helicopter. They got these big cannons. They attach them to the bottom of a helicopter, and they move them from one spot to another. He said the 101st was pretty gung-ho. He said it may not be the best outfit if you're trying to stay alive in Vietnam. I asked Daryl, have you ever sensed that a fight was about to come at you? That you sensed it? He told me this story. He said, we were sent to a fire-based bagel. All day we're shooting lots of stuff with delayed fuses. There were no grunts, which means infantry with us. The weather got bad and the choppers couldn't come get us, so there's about 100 of us out there in the middle of the jungle. There was no one to protect the wire. That means the boundary around the fire base. We all thought we were dead. We waited for them to come get us. They didn't come. The next morning the skies opened up and here come the choppers. We got away with it that night. When you thought you were going to get your blankety blank kicked, it happened. When you weren't prepared, that's when you get it. He said, after that we moved a couple more times and then we headed back to Bagel. The date was April 26, 1970. We had just gotten there and they were waiting for us. They had their mortars set up. This time Daryl didn't hear the helicopters or the mortars. I got blown off the hill. The shrapnel broke his right leg and punctured his lung, his left lung. I had my flak jacket on and I was wearing my steel pot. Probably saved my life. That one would have gotten me without it. They dusted me out my chopper to Da Nang. They wrapped me in a blanket, which was fortunate, because he was sitting on the outside of the chopper, which flew up to 10,000 feet to keep him from bleeding out. I just about froze, he said. I passed out and woke up on a table. They put a chest tube in and told him to cough. He said, I don't want to cough. He said, cough. He said it hurt like blankety blank. They told him if you don't cough, you're going to get pneumonia. Then they put me under to operate on him. As they readied him to go to Japan, they moved his gurney to the tarmac about 11 o'clock. Here he is getting ready to leave Vietnam to go to Japan. We're laying there at 2 o'clock, comes around, 3 hours we've been laying there. I said, go back in, your bird shot got shot down. That means your helicopter got shot down. We'll try and get you out of here tomorrow. So, if you're having a bad day, I got news for you. Place your life into perspective. Place your life into perspective. We got it good. You know why we've got it good? Because people who are willing to stand up for something that's bigger than them go out and do something like defend the United States of America. And that's why we have Veterans Day, to pay homage, pay respect to those people. And so on behalf of them, Godspeed, and thank you for having me here today.
Thank you, Dave. Was there any questions for Dave? I think you covered everything pretty well. With that, we'll go ahead and have our taps and finish the program. And there will be no program at Memorial Day. It's a little bit cold and kind of hard to get all the guys are still harvesting and everything. So, thank you for coming and have a great day.